Hi there grade 12s, welcome back to Dandelion Delphi tutorials. This is only for the grade 12s as we are covering two-dimensional arrays. This is the last question, question 3 in the supplementary of 2017, and in your final a similar question could be asked in question 4. For this question you are allowed to add an object of your choice to display your two-dimensional array in. Easiest would probably be your string grid, but I'd rather have you practice the rich edit. So add a rich edit to the form. And for now, just display the two-dimensional array. We'll get to what all of this means a little bit later on. I made use of a procedure to display since I would have to display later on in the program again. Press pause and try it yourself. I just wanted to show you a trick today. You don't have to do it this way. But we need to set up tab stops because the output area was very small and we wouldn't have everything on the same line with the tab stops in between. Always before you set up your tab stops, make sure that you clear the rich edit. And I have 7 columns, so therefore your tab count would be 1 less, and that is 6. What I've done is I've used a loop to set up my tab stops instead of having to write this line 6 times. I initialize the tab stop settings to 0 there, and then I loop 6 times. But remember, your first tab is tab 0. And then I'm going to use that K inside the square brackets there to set my tab. But before I do that, I just add 30. 30 was fine to create the tab stops for these lines. And in this way, I've used the loop to set up the tab stops. But as I said, you could use this line 6 times and just set them up individually. When we're working with two-dimensional arrays and it's a row question, you should start with a for loop for the row. Now, this is a row question because when I'm outputting in a rich edit, I'm outputting row by row. So I'm starting with my for loop for the row. There were 5 rows, and the inner loop there is the column loop. And every time I go to a new row, I'm going to initialize S out to an empty string. That's my output string. And then I'm going to add, for that row, I'm going to add the columns from the array to that string with the #9 separating the values. So I am building onto my string with the two-dimensional array. And then before I go to the new row, I then display that string in my rich edit. So this two-dimensional array represents a mall and you are the asterisk, and we are now going to place friends of yours at different restaurants. You are going to select at which restaurants they are from the combo box, and then you have to place the hash in the correct position. So if they select C, this is where the hash goes. It replaces the X's. So the X's are where restaurants are. These zeros or circles, they are open areas. You are the star. And here's an example then of the output after they selected C and F. And there you have a friend represented by the hash at restaurant number F as well. So press pause and try it yourself. Just take note of the order here of the restaurants. It goes A to E and then F to J upwards. And your combo box is also like that. So you are going to have it in alphabetical order from A to J. The item index should help you determine your row, especially for these guys here, where you need to place that hash. So this top part here would really be for the restaurants A to E. They had the values in the item index. Remember, the item index starts at 0. So that would be the number 0 to 4. So I'm testing if the item index is less than 5. If it is, then I'm going to add 1 to the index. So if they select A, item index would be 0. I add 1 and my row is then 1. So if they select the E, item index is 4 and that would be row 5, which is correct. And they are all in column 2 of my two-dimensional array because the first column are the letters A to F. Sorry, not A to F, A to E. F then starts here. So anything here that goes to the else, that would be F to J, and that would be the numbers 5 to 9. I know there are 10 options, but remember the item index starts at 0. So if they select F, that is row 5. So F would be the item index 5, and I'm taking 10 minus that item index. That would give me row 5 for my two-dimensional array. And if they select J, which is my last option of the 10, the item index would be 9. So 10 minus 9 is 1, and J would be in row 1. And they are all in column 6. And what you then need to do is just place the hash inside of your array. If you decided to use the string grid, very important here is that you are making changes to your two-dimensional array and only displaying in your string grid. You do not get marks for using your string grid as a variable or to process data. The idea is that you use your two-dimensional array, add the hash to that, and then redisplay. Clear your rich edit or your string grid, and then redisplay the two-dimensional array. So the question then tells you that you are here and you have to determine who is the closest friend to you, and that each movement, whether it is horizontally or vertically, is 4.5 meters. So you have to calculate how far you are away from those two and then determine which one is the closest to you. Now, initially I thought they meant we are going to go, let's say I'll start there, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 movements, but they actually want you to go all the way to the C, so that's 5 movements. Same here, you have to count all the way to that last one there. This is your time to practice, so press pause and try this button yourself. See that you get the output for both of these inputs where you have C and F as well as C, F and H. Again, many ways that you could have tackled the question. I think important is somewhere nested ifs, getting the right output and making use of your array and definitely not your string grid. So I'll get to YK0 there. I'm going to loop now. Doesn't actually matter which one you start with, row or column. I'm searching for hashes, so it doesn't matter where I find it. The moment that I find a hash, I found a friend in the current row, in the current column. Now, if I can just take you back here, you will see that wherever I am to get to a restaurant, I'm going to move 1, 2, 3 places. So for that reason, my initial code here is the distance is 4.5 times 3 to get to the restaurant horizontally. And then I'm going to take the row I'm currently in, minus 1, and then times that by 4.5. Let me just show you the minus 1. I'm already there. So if I'm in row 1, I'm saying 1 minus 1 is 0. So I'm already there. It's only the 4.5 times by the 3 to get there. So if I have to still move down 1, that's row 2. I'm there and I just have to move 1 down. So the row minus 1 will just give me the 1 of 4.5. You'll see you have to display the name of the restaurant. So I have just said here, store it as our rest. Take it from the array mall, either in row 1 or row 7. So if the column where I have found this person is in column 2, so in this column here, row 1 would be the appropriate item to take, column 1 would be the appropriate column to take for the restaurant name, else I have to take column 7. So that's where this 1 and 7 comes from, and this is if I'm in column 2 where I found the hash. Take the restaurant name from column 1, but the row I am in currently. Then I'm going to display the name of the restaurant and the distance with the 2 decimal places. I just see I made a mistake here. It should be 1 decimal place if you have a look at the screenshot. Okay, so now we come to K. The reason I have K here is I have to find the closest person. So in order to initialize R close to keep the closest distance and S close the closest restaurant, The first one that I find with a hash, that I'm going to make the closest restaurant. If it is the only one, that's the one that would be displayed. And also the closest distance. And then from there on, so I'm incrementing k here, and the only reason I'm doing that is not to run this code again, but the next time I find a hash, I then go in further into my nested if. And I am testing if the previous value that was stored in R close is greater than the current distance to the restaurant. So if the current distance is smaller than the previous closest one, I'm going to replace those two variables with the current restaurant and its distance. If it's not bigger than, then I'm going to test if they are equal to, because I don't know if you saw, but for the second output, there were two restaurants that was seen in the output because two of them had the same distance. And therefore, I'm building onto S close here by adding the current restaurant if the two have the same distance. And if none of this is true, no changes would be made to R close. But the idea here of the top part is to just have initial values, first values, to set it so that for the next ones you have something to compare those variables with. This here is the end of the if to test if it's a hash, and this is the end of my for loop for my column. And then outside of that there was an empty line, I hope you noticed that, and then nearest friend or friends is S close that I've built there. Could be more than one restaurant or just the one as in the first example. Remember to practice as many question 4s as you can. I know this was question 3, so in papers from the final of 2017 earlier on, they would just be the last question in question papers, but they are all very good to practice, even the ones going as far back as 2008. Thank you guys for watching Dandelion Delphi tutorials. Please remember to leave some comments and ask questions if you want me to explain something. If you need more practice or explanations on two-dimensional arrays, those are explained in my Dandelion Delphi Book 3. Thank you guys. Hope to see you soon.